Yesterday we had seen the folder structure, or basically the use of different files in this Angular project. So we had looked at all the files over here. So we have briefly understood the use of each and every file, and which files are important for us and which files are not important for us, right? And yesterday we had a in-depth discussion about this package log.json. So basically the difference between package.json and package log.json, right? So now over here, if we look at this particular folder structure, we had looked at the files which are directly inside our project, that is basically ng16 demo. Okay, so all these files are directly inside our project folder. But apart from these files, there are also some folders, and from those folders we had already seen the use of this node modules folder. So whatever modules get downloaded from the node repository, those modules are stored in this particular node modules folder, right? But then apart from this, we have one more folder which is called as src folder, which is nothing but the source folder of your application. Source folder of your application means whatever code you are going to write, all that code will be inside this particular folder. So this is the folder which is of very much importance to us. Yes. And now when you expand this folder, again inside this folder, you will see some subfolders, like we have this app folder, asset folder, and again some files, right? So now we need to understand the use of these different files and these folders inside this src folder. All right. So now from now onwards, whatever we will be doing, all that work will be in the src folder. But then now to understand the use of these files and these folders inside the src folder, first of all, you need to understand two concepts. And those concepts are basically components and modules. So until and unless you don't understand the concept of components and modules, you won't be able to understand this particular files and folders. So let's first of all understand the concept of components. This is a very important concept because the complete Angular framework is based on components only. When we discussed the differences between Angular 1 and Angular 2, so Angular 1 had a concept of controllers, but now the same controllers are called as components in Angular 2. And these components are basically the heart of an Angular application. You cannot create an Angular application without a component. So make sure that you are understanding this concept very clearly, right? Okay. So here I'll just give the heading. Components in Angular. So now, before talking about the components specific to Angular, let us discuss components in a very general sense or in a very general terms, right? So basically, if you talk about a component, yes, I know you must have heard about this particular word a lot of times, right? Okay. So in Java also we use this term component. In .NET also we use this particular word component. Okay. Or in any other language also we use this word component a lot of times. So what do you understand by component, or what is your idea of a component? Yes, guys, please give your answers in the chat box. What is your idea about a component? Yeah, guys, can I have some quick answers in the chat? Now, I will give you a very simple definition of a component, or a very generalized definition of a component. Correct? So, component is a building block of an application which has its own functionality and it can be moved from one place to another without affecting its functionality, right? So this is a very generalized definition of a component, and it can be applied to any technology. Okay, so whether it is Java, whether it is .NET, whether it is Angular, whether it is PHP, any technology. Okay, this definition can be applicable for components in any technology. Right, a very generalized definition of a component. Okay, so it is a building block of an application. Right. Okay, so this what's the important building block of an application which has its own functionality. So a component always has a functionality and it can be moved from one place to another without affecting its functionality. So a component has a functionality, and if you move the component from one place to another, its functionality is not affected. The functionality of the component remains the same. All right. So now just to make you imagine a component, I will give you a real world example. Let's say this is your house, right? Let's say this is your house. And let's say this is the hall. Right? Let's say this is the bedroom. And let's say this is the kitchen. Right? Fine. So this is your house. In your house, you have a hall, a bedroom, and a kitchen. Right? And now I'm pretty much sure that in your home, you must be having electric bulb. Yes or no? All right. Okay. So let's assume that in your hall, okay, in your hall, you have a socket for electric bulb. Almost in all of your houses, you must be having this. All right. Okay. So this is your hall, and in this hall, you have a socket for electric bulb. All right. So what you will be doing, you will be inserting that electric bulb in this particular socket. And when you turn the switch on, right, that electric bulb will start glowing. Basically, this is the electric bulb which is right now glowing in your hall. Now let's say you also have this electric bulb socket in your bedroom, right? And now what you do, you remove the electric bulb from here and put that electric bulb inside this particular socket. So from the socket of the hall, you remove that electric bulb and you insert that particular electric bulb in the socket of your bedroom, right? And then you turn the switch on. What do you think? Will there be any change in the functionality of the electric bulb? If you remove the electric bulb from the hall and insert that bulb in the socket of the bedroom, will there be any change in the functionality of that electric bulb? Obviously, no. Right. Okay. So whether that electric bulb, you are using that electric bulb in the hall, or whether you are using that electric bulb in the bedroom, or whether you are using that electric bulb in the kitchen, there will not be any change in the functionality of the electric bulb. So this electric bulb has a functionality. This electric bulb has a functionality, okay, which is basically glowing or which is basically emitting light, and this functionality remains unchanged whether you are moving that electric bulb from one place to another place. So if I compare this particular situation with this particular definition, then can I say that the electric bulb is a component inside my house? Can I say that the electric bulb is a component inside my house? If I compare this situation with this particular definition, okay, I can say that this electric bulb is a component of my house, right? And this component has some functionality, and the functionality remains unchanged if I'm moving this bulb from one place to another. So now you must have got some idea about a component, or you must be able to imagine what a component might be. So now when we are developing an application this particular way, okay, or basically when we are developing a component, when we are creating a component, it is called as component based development, right? It is called as component based development right? Okay, and the beauty of component based development is that you focus only on developing the component without worrying about where that component will be used, right? This is the beauty of component based development, that you focus only on developing the component without worrying about where that component will be used. Okay, like this electric bulb, right? Okay, see, the company which is manufacturing this electric bulb, is that company first of all considering, or first of all thinking that this electric bulb should be used in the hall, so I need to manufacture the bulb according to the hall, or this electric bulb should be used in the bedroom, so I should manufacture this bulb according to the bedroom? Is the company thinking like that? Right? Okay, is that company thinking like that, that I should have a different kind of electric bulb for the hall, or a different kind of electric bulb for the bedroom, or a different kind of electric bulb in the for the kitchen? No, right? The company is not thinking about that, okay, or the company is not thinking where this bulb will be used. It is simply manufacturing the bulb, and now it is upon the users where they want to use that bulb. All right, okay, so company is only focusing on developing the component, right? Company is only focusing on developing the component, right? Okay, and now the user who purchases that component, the user will decide where, according to his requirement, that a component will be can be fitted. All right, okay, so if you feel that the component can be this bulb can be fitted in the hall, all right, okay, then he will fit that bulb in the hall. If it is required in the bedroom, then he will fit that bulb in the bedroom, and so on. Okay, so the manufacturer is only focusing on manufacturing the component, okay, and then after manufacturing the component, he simply gives that component to the user, and now the user will decide where he wants to use that component. Okay, so whichever is the ideal place where that component can be fitted, right, the user will use that component at that particular place. Right, same is the concept in a software world. Okay, in software world also, when we are doing component based development, at that time we are also focusing on only developing the component, right, without worrying about where that component is used. All right, okay, and then it might happen that we are only using that particular component in our application, or we might give that component to someone else to use it in their application. All right, okay, so obviously if we are developing a component and we are only using that component, then definitely we will be developing that component according to our application requirement. But if we are giving that particular component to someone else, right, okay, then we will not be very much concerned where that person will use that component. Okay, right? We will simply develop the component and give that component to that other user, and now that other user will decide where he wants to use that component, right? Okay, so now here you can see that there is one advantage of component based development, that is code reusability, right? Code reusability. So once you develop a component, right, you can use that component at any place, okay, and any number of places, fine. Okay, so you can use that component at one place, you can use that component at two places, you can use that component at 100 places, right? Okay, so you can again and again reuse the same component wherever you find its requirement, right guys? I hope this is clear. So this was just a generalized discussion about a component, what is a component and what is component based development, right? But definitely we are going to focus on components in web application development, right? Okay, because we are going to create web applications in Angular. Okay, so we are going to focus on components in a web application development, right? Okay, so let's have a look at that. Components in web application. Right now again I'm discussing components in a general web application. I'm not saying that this is an Angular web application. Okay, a general web application. Right? Okay, fine. Let's say a web application developed only using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Right? Okay. So to just make you imagine a component in a web application, I'll just give an example. Let's say I'm writing a very simple HTML code. I'm writing a very simple HTML code. H1. I'm giving a H1 tag, and then here I'm saying style is equal to background color orange, right? And I can just give some text like welcome to Angular, right? Slash H1. Okay, right? So I'm writing a very simple HTML code. Okay, H1 tag, right? And now let's say the file in which I'm writing this particular code is by the name html1.html, right? Okay, I'm writing this particular code inside a file html1.html. Okay, fine. So now all of you know what this code will be doing, correct? So what this code will do? Anyone in the chat? What is this code line of code going to do? Yes, people, please put in the chat. Right? Okay. So basically, it will display this particular text, welcome to Angular, okay, in H1 heading style, right? Okay, and then it will have the background color as orange, right? Okay, so a very simple HTML code, okay, to display some text, okay, with with some background color, right? Now let's say I have another file html2.html, right? I have another file html2.html, and now what I can do, I can simply copy this code, okay. Okay, either I can either you can say cut or copy, whatever it is. Okay, so let's say I am copying this particular code, or yeah, I'm copying this particular code and putting this code in HTML2.html. Right? Fine. So the same code I've put inside HTML2.html. Right? Now, what do you think? Will there be any difference in the output? Will there be any difference in the output of both the files? Yes, people? No? Right? Obviously, no, because it is the same code that we have put in both of these files. Right? Okay. So there won't be any difference in the output. Right? Similarly, if I have one more file, HTML3.html, and I copy this code from here and again paste this code inside this particular file. Right? Paste this code inside this particular file. Again, will there be any difference in the output? No. Right? Okay. So that means what? In whichever file I'm putting this particular code, it is going to give me the same output. Right? Okay. In whichever file I'm putting this particular code, it is going to give me the same output. Right? Okay. So this code has a functionality. All right. Okay. Displaying this particular text in a particular background color, it's a functionality. Right? So this code has a functionality, and if I move this code from one place to another, then the functionality is remaining unchanged. Yes or no? Right, guys? Okay. So this code is having some functionality, and if I'm moving this code from one place to another, then the functionality is not changing, it is remaining the same. Right? So if I compare this particular scenario with this particular definition, can I say that what we have done over here is nothing but we have developed a component? Yes, guys? Can I say that? Right? Okay. So what we have done over here is nothing but we have developed a component. Right? Okay. Actually, this is not a component. Okay. But just to make you understand, right? Okay. Just to make you correlate the things. Okay. We can assume that we have just developed a component. All right. Okay, we can assume that we have just developed a component. Practically, this is not a component. All right. Okay, but just to keep understand the things in a easier way, we can assume that we have just developed a component. All right. Okay, so we can say that we have created the simplest component. Right. Okay, we have created the simplest component. Right. Okay. Now let's consider another situation. Let's say I have this file, my html.html, right? My html.html, and in this file, I am again having an h1 tag, and to this h1 tag, now I am assigning some id equal to, let's say, my h1. All right. Okay. I'm just opening and closing this h1 tag. I'm not writing anything inside this h1 tag. Fine. So I've just inserted this my HTML.html I only have this h1 tag, and I have assigned an ID to this h1 tag. All right, and I have not written any text inside this h1 tag. Yes. Then I can have another file, my css dot css, and in this my css dot css I can write some styles for this h1 tag. So here I can say hash my h1, right? And here I can say color red, background color orange. Fine. Okay, so I have written some css file, okay, which contains the style for this h1 tag. And then I have a javascript file, let's say my js dot js, and in this javascript file you are writing a code document dot get element by id my h1 dot inner html is equal to welcome to Angular. Right? I hope everyone has understood this code. Yes, guys. So what we have just done is that whatever code we have written previously, now we are separating that code into 3 different files. Okay, and obviously from this my.html, you'll be referring to this css and this js file. All right. Okay. Now I'm not writing the code to refer to this css and js file. Okay, I hope you might be already aware about that. All right. Okay, so now this same code, now we have split into 3 different files. So we have a separate html file, we have a separate css file, and we have a separate javascript file, right? Okay, and what this code is going to do, it is going to give us the same output. That means it is going to display this h1 tag with some color and some background color, right? Okay, and the text that will be displayed inside this html tag will be welcome to Angular. Right, so whatever output we were previously getting over here, we are going to get the same output over here. Yes or no? Yes, people. All right, now let's say we have a project by the name project 1. Okay, we have a project by the name project 1, and we are putting these 3 files inside this particular project, right? So this is our my html.html, then my css.css, and my js.js. Okay, so let's assume that these 3 files are part of this particular project, right? Okay. Fine. So I'm putting these 3 files inside this project. Now let's say I have another project, project 2, right? And now what I'm doing, okay, again the same thing, I can either cut or I can copy. Okay, let's say copy, right? So I'm copying these 3 files from here and putting them inside this project 2 also, right? Okay, I'm copying these 3 files from here and pasting them inside this project 2 also. Yes, guys. So now, what do you think when I execute both of this particular project, or when I run both of these projects, will the output of both the projects be same or will it be different? Yes, guys. If I'm putting these 3 files in both of these projects, will the output of both of these projects be same or will it be different? Yeah. Yes, guys. Obviously, it is going to be the same because the code inside all these 3 files is same. All right. Okay. Fine. Mute. Right. Okay. So now basically it does not matter that where in which project I'm using these 3 files. In whichever project I'm using, I'm putting these 3 files. Okay. The output of I'm going to get the same output. Right. Okay. So now can I say that in this case these 3 files together, in this case these 3 files together are forming one single component? Yes, guys. In this case, these 3 files together are forming one component. Yes, guys. Do you agree with me? Hello. Yes, everyone. Do you agree that these 3 files together are making one single component? Right? Okay. So yeah, basically this is the point that I wanted to come on, that what I want to stress on is it is not that a component can be made up of only one file. It's not like that. Okay. A single component can be made up of multiple files. Right? A single component can be made up of multiple files. Right? Okay. So this is basically the concept of component in web application development. All right. Okay. This is the concept of component in web application development. So now when we talk about a component in web application development, okay, see what this JavaScript contains. This JavaScript basically contains the functionality, right? This JavaScript basically contains the functionality. Yes. This CSS contains the styles, right? Or I can say the appearance. All right. Okay. So this so one file is basically containing information about appearance of the component. Okay. Another file is containing the functionality of that component. All right. Okay. And the third file is basically containing the name of that component. Right now, for example, right now this h1 tag. Okay, this h1 is basically we can say that this h1 is right now behaving as the name of the component. All right. Okay. So so basically right now if you talk about this particular component has an appearance. That means it has some styles, it has a functionality, and it has a name. Right. Okay. So that is what a component in web application consists of. All right. That is what a component in web application consists of. Okay. So a component in web application consists of appearance. It has an appearance, it has some functionality, and it has some name, or we can say the identifier. Right, guys? Okay, or you can also consider this to be the name. Right, my h1. Right, no, not this h1. Okay, my h1. Right. Okay, so it has an identifier, it has a appearance, and it has a functionality. Okay, so we can say that a component in web application development consists of three things: the identifier, the appearance, and the functionality. Got it, guys? So this is basically a component in web application development. All right, people, I hope you are able to understand this. Right? Okay, but then this is just a simple component which we have created without using any framework. All right. Okay, we can say that this is just a simple component we have created without using any framework. Okay, but then or without using Angular, to be specific. Okay, but then exactly same is the concept of component in Angular. Right, whatever is the concept of component in a in a generalized sense we have discussed. Okay, the same is the concept of components in Angular. All right. Okay, so a component in Angular also has a functionality, it also has an appearance, and it also has an identifier. All right. Okay, a component in Angular also has the functionality, it also has an appearance, and it also has an identifier. All right. Okay, so only the thing is that when we talk about Angular, right, when we talk about Angular, this HTML, this HTML, it is ultimately HTML only. It is ultimately HTML only, but we simply don't call it as HTML, but we call it as HTML template. All right, we call it as HTML template. Okay, so ultimately it is nothing but HTML only, but in Angular terms, we call it as HTML template. Yes, guys. Right. Okay. Fine. So it is nothing but an HTML file only. Right. So it in Angular also you are going to create an HTML file. All right. Okay. But that is called as HTML template over there. CSS is going to remain CSS only. Okay, so whatever is the appearance of that component, okay, for defining that appearance, we need to write CSS only, right? And then this JavaScript, right? Okay, in Angular, this JavaScript file will be replaced by a TypeScript file. That's it. All right, this JavaScript file will be replaced by a TypeScript file in Angular. Fine. So that is only the difference. Right. Okay. So HTML is called as HTML template. CSS remains as it is. Right. Okay. And instead of using JavaScript, you're going to use TypeScript. That's it. Okay. So if you are using these three things, then you are basically creating an Angular component. Got it, guys? Okay. So if I write down component in Angular, so HTML is basically called as HTML template. CSS remains as it is. So CSS remains CSS only. And JavaScript is replaced by TypeScript. Yes, guys? Yes, people? Okay. So this is basically the concept of component in Angular. Not a big deal. All right. Okay. So only the thing is that, okay, instead of JavaScript, we are using TypeScript. All right. Okay. So yeah, I'm having a question in Angular only TS used or both like JS and TS. Okay. See, we are using TypeScript. Okay, but if you want, you can write JavaScript code also. All right. Okay, but no one writes a JavaScript code. Okay, everyone uses a TypeScript code because TypeScript makes things a lot easier. Right. Okay. So that is basically concept of components in Angular. Okay, so it will have HTML, it will have CSS. So it will have HTML template, it will have CSS, and it will have TypeScript. Right, guys? Till here, is it clear? So are you able to visualize a component? Right? Okay, or at least you must have got some idea of a component in Angular. Right? So now let us see how to exactly create a component in Angular. Right? Okay. So creating a component in Angular. Now, in Angular, we are not using JavaScript, we are using TypeScript, right? Okay. And TypeScript is an object-oriented language. So, in other object-oriented languages like Java and C Sharp, right? Okay, we create classes and objects. Similarly, in TypeScript also, we have the concept of classes and objects. Yes. Okay. So to create a component in Angular, okay, we first of all need to write a class. We first of all need to write a class. Okay. So let us first create a class. So here I can say now the syntax is very much similar to your Java and C Sharp, right? Okay. So I can say let's say we want to create a component by the name uh, let's say hello component, right? Okay, so I can say class hello component, right? Okay, class hello component. And then now when you talk about classes, right? Okay, a class has some properties, right? Okay, it can have some properties and it can have some methods, right? Okay, so right now we are not going to talk about methods. Okay, let's only focus on properties or attributes, right? So let's say this class has only one attribute by the name message. Yes. Okay, so here in this particular class I want to declare a variable by the name message. So here I can say message, right? Okay, and if I want I can directly say message equal to something like welcome to Angular, right? Okay, I can directly assign a value to this message, right? Okay, but TypeScript recommends that whenever you are declaring a variable, whenever you are declaring a variable, okay, you also specify its data type, right? Okay, so to specify the data type, I can say message colon, and I want the data type of this particular message to be string. Yes. Okay, so message colon string equal to welcome to Angular. Fine. So what we have done, we have simply created a TypeScript class. Okay, and we have that class is having a property by the name message. Okay, and the type of that particular property is string, and this is the value. Right. Okay, and now over here I'm using one keyword called as export, right? Okay, but right now do not focus a lot on the use of this export keyword. Okay, I will explain you what this export means. Okay, but might be not today. Okay, might be in 2 or 3 lectures. I will explain you the meaning of this export. All right. Okay, but right now just assume that whenever we are creating a class, okay, before this particular class keyword, we are using another keyword which is called as export, right? Okay, it's very much same like the class we create in Java. So in Java, whenever we create a class, we use the word public, right? So public class something. So here instead of public, we are using export. All right, but what is the exact meaning of export? To understand that, you need to wait for 2 or 3 classes. All right. Okay, so here we have created a class, right? But now currently this is just a simple class, right? Currently this particular thing is just a simple class. It's just a simple TypeScript class. Okay, it will not behave as a component, right? This is just a simple TypeScript class. It does not contain any functionality of a component. We cannot call this as a component, right? Okay, so now we will need to make this class, behave as a component, or we will want that this class should contain the functionality of a component, or it should contain the behavior of a component. All right. Okay, so to make this class behave as a component, right, we need to use something called as a decorator, right? We need to use something called as a decorator. Okay, so this is how we need to use it. So at the rate component, fine. So this at the rate component, okay, this at the rate component is basically called as what? This is called as a decorator. Okay, so like this, there are different decorators. Okay, so we have ng model, right? Okay, we have pipe, right? Okay, so we have lots and lots of decorators. We have at the input, at the output. Okay, so we have lots and lots of decorators available in Angular, right? So at the component is just one of the decorator. Like this, we have lots and lots of decorators. Okay, so now always remember that or how do you identify a decorator? How do you identify a decorator? So a decorator always begins with an at the rate sign, right? A decorator always begins with an at the rate sign. Okay, so whatever you see beginning with an at the rate sign, that particular thing is called as a decorator. Okay, and this decorator is basically used to make a particular class behave as something. All right. Okay, or this decorator is basically used to make a class, okay, behave as something. Not only class, basically we can apply decorators to a lot of things. We can even apply a decorator to a variable. Okay, but right now let's consider only a class. Okay, we want to make this class behave as a component. Okay, so for that we need to apply a decorator to this class, and that decorator is by the name at the rate component. So when we apply this at the rate component decorator to this particular class, this class will start behaving as a component, or it will contain some inbuilt functionality of a component, right? Or some inbuilt behavior of a component. Now, what is that inbuilt behavior, or what is that special functionality? What is the difference between a simple class and a component class? Okay, that we will discuss later on, right? Okay, but right now just assume that a component is a special class which is having some special functionality. All right. Okay, fine. So now I want this class to behave as a component. So I'm applying this at the rate component decorator. Got it, guys? Yes, people, till here, is it clear? Okay, so if I don't apply this component decorator, then this class will not behave as a component. It will be just a simple TypeScript class. Okay, it will not behave as a component. It will not contain the behavior of a component. Right? Okay, might be those people who are from Java background. Okay, they must be aware about annotations. Yes, guys. Okay, so whatever is the use of annotations in Java, the same is the use of annotations the same is the use of decorator in Angular. Okay, so you can say that this particular thing we call it as annotations in Java, and in Angular we call it as a decorator. Right? Fine. Okay, so now when we apply this component decorator to this class will start behaving as a component. Yes, but then we saw that a component also consists of an HTML template. Right? A component also consists of an HTML template. So over here we can this decorator now see each decorator also has its own properties. Okay, every decorator also has its own properties. Right? Okay, so component decorator has its own properties. Ng module decorator has its own properties. Okay, so different types of decorators also have their own unique properties. Okay, so one of the properties of this component is template. Right? Okay, one of the properties of this component is template. Okay, and using this template property we specify the HTML template. Right? Okay, so now like in JavaScript now this template is basically a string, right? Because this particular code, okay, this particular HTML code we need to specify in the form of a string. Right? Okay, so this template is basically of type string. Okay, and like in JavaScript, for strings either we can use single quotes or double quotes. So here I can say h1, right? Okay, and here I will write something called as message slash h1, right? Okay, okay, so this is basically our HTML template. All right, this is our HTML template. Okay, and if you see over here the variable that we had declared in this class, okay, we are using that particular variable over here. Right? Okay, but we are not directly using this variable, we are using this variable inside two curly braces. So this particular syntax is basically called as interpolation syntax. Okay, but right now if you don't understand this word, okay, don't worry. Okay, just remember that when you are using the name of the variable this way in double quotes, then at runtime when this component is displayed on the browser, right? Okay, whatever is the value of this particular variable, that value will be displayed over here. Right, guys? Okay, so at runtime whenever this component is displayed on the browser, whatever value you have specified of this particular variable, that value will be displayed over here. Got it? Yes, people. So this is how we specify the HTML template. All right? Yes, guys. I hope till here it is clear. Okay. So now we can say that we have created a component. Yes, we can say that we have created a component. Okay, but then after creating the component, you will also use that component. Yes, after creating the component, you are also going to use that component. And now for using that particular component, right, we need to have an identifier for that component. Okay, because or we need to assign some name to that particular component, because obviously if a component is not having any name, then how we will be able to use that component, right? Okay, so in order for us to use that component, we will need to assign some name to that component. All right. Okay, so now how can you assign a name, or how can you assign an identifier to that component? So for that, we use another property of this @ component decorator, that is called as selector. Okay, we use another property which is called as selector, and the selector is also of type string. So here you can specify any name. For example, I can say hello. Right? Okay, I can specify the name as hello. Right, guys? Okay. So here, this hello is serving as an identifier of this particular component. Okay. So now, whenever I want to use this component, I will use this identifier. All right, guys. Okay. So for example, let's say I have a file, let's say index.html, or it can be any HTML file. I'm just giving a name, index.html. And now inside this index.html, I want to use this component. So now to use this component, what I will do, I'll use this selector name as a tag. I will use this selector name as a tag. So here I will say hello and slash hello. All right, guys. Okay. So this is how I will be using this particular component. All right. Okay. So so in whichever HTML file, in whichever HTML file I will use this particular tag. In whichever HTML file I will use this particular tag. Okay. This HTML template of this particular component will be displayed inside that particular file. All right, guys. Yes, people. So in whichever HTML file, I can use this tag in any HTML file. Right? I'm just giving an example of index.html, but practically I can use it in any HTML file. So wherever I use this particular tag, or wherever I use this filter of this particular component as a tag, there the HTML template of this particular component will be displayed. Got it? I hope these things are clear. Yes, people? Any doubts over here? Hello? Okay. Fine. So most of the people are saying that it is clear. Fine. Okay. So I think it's already 9:30. Okay. So this is basically the concept of component in Angular. Right? Okay. So I'll just stop sharing the screen. Okay. And okay. So anyone wants to ask anything, guys? Any doubts? Anyone is having? No doubts? Right? And so I'll stop the record.